What you're hearing is pianist Myra Melford performing a solo live set at the Something Else Festival this past June in Hamilton, Ontario. Her performance opened the festival, and later she also performed as part of Francois Houle's Secret Lives of Color band. Myra Melford is an American avant-garde pianist, composer, educator, and improviser. Her approach to the instrument is percussive, athletic, and uber-dynamic. Her composition style is exploratory, poetic, visual, and thought-provoking. Her playing is like nothing else. I first heard Myra Melford perform at the Glass Slipper in Vancouver in the early 90s. She was in town with her trio, which included Lindsay Horner on bass and Reggie Nicholson on drums. I'd never heard anything like it. At once challenging, daring, and full of surprises, but also deeply bluesy with endless soul and groove. My perspective on improvised music totally changed that day, and I became an instant fan. Melford is an interdisciplinary artist of the highest order. She was awarded the Alpert Award in the Arts for Music in 2012, plus the Guggenheim Fellowship and the Doris Duke Performing Artist Award in 2013. She has released over 30 albums in various configurations, solo, trio, quartet, quintet, etc., and has collaborated with some of the greatest talents in contemporary music. Her most recent release is entitled Splash and is inspired by the work of the post-abstract expressionist painter Cy Twombly. Born and raised near Chicago, Illinois, Melford studied music from an early age. She was accepted into the graduate program of the New England Conservatory, but instead chose to seek out the avant-garde downtown scene in New York City. She studied with icons such as Henry Threadgill, Don Pullen, and Jackie Bayard, and began working and touring with various inventive ensembles, such as those led by Butch Morris, Fred Frith, and John Zorn. Fast forward a couple of decades, and Melford is now an educator herself, teaching composition and improvisational practices at the University of California, Berkeley. I was so happy when Myra agreed to sit down for a chat at the Something Else Festival. I set us up in a room in the basement of St. Cuthbert's Church, which is the festival's main venue. As we talked, the festival continued above us, and at one point you'll hear Joe Fonda's bass of operation kicking into gear and adding some festival vibes to our conversation. I recorded the interview as a video on my iPhone, realizing I'd need to go guerrilla style if I was going to get this interview during a busy music festival. So although this episode is audio only, I'm going to try and post some video up on our new Music Buddy YouTube page, as soon as I can. So stay tuned for that and keep an eye out on our social media. A big shout out and thank you to Something Else Festival Director, my friend Jem Zafir, who was also my guest for episode 60. Plus, huge thank yous to the lovely Donna Acri and the rest of the staff and volunteers at the festival for a wonderful weekend of creative and improvised music and generous hospitality. I had a great time. Welcome to Music Buddy. Thank you for being here. My name is Jane Gowan. Please enjoy my conversation with Myra Melford. It's all feeling, it's all love. It's all connection, that human stuff. So tell me where you're coming from, cause I got time and the night is young. Welcome.
Thank you.
First time I saw you play, it was the 90s at the Glass Slipper. in Vancouver.
Oh, right. I remember the glass slipper.
Downstairs.
With Lindsay and Reggie. And George Lewis was in the audience. And it was the first time that I met George. What a vibe.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it blew my mind. And I was like, oh, this is jazz. Because I was going to jazz school at the time.
Oh, okay.
So I think you've probably had about 30 albums since I saw you last. Congratulations. And congratulations on your most recent album, Splash.
Thank you.
Released this year with Michael Formanek on bass and Jess Smith on percussion, inspired by the artwork of Cy Twombly.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about Cy Twombly's work and how it inspired you in your composition and improvisation?
Yeah. Well, I encountered Twombly's work for the first time in 1994. I was living in New York, and there was a big retrospective of his work at the Museum of Modern Art. And I read about it in the New York Times before I went, and I read that he would practice as a young art student in the dark. He would draw in the dark. I mean, I'm sure I'm putting my own interpretation or projection onto it, but what I understood was that for him it was more important to feel the line than to see it. And I feel that way about playing the piano and about music, that, especially the way I play the piano, that it's more important, the physical gesture, the impulse, is in some ways more important than the sound. I mean, it's not really, and I know people would think, what do you mean? But for me, it was really about the energy of the energy of the gestures, and there was the whole chalkboard series,
That's
which
right.
was
And
fantastic.
there's a piece chalk.
Yes, and I actually played that tonight.
What is it, the action words, or like splash is an action word?
So I thought about, I was working with a colleague out in Oakland. We were co-teaching a graduate improvisation seminar, Zena Parkins, fantastic harpist and composer and just an amazing musician. And we were coming up with ideas that we could give the students to kind of as prompts for exercises for improvising. And she suggested action words. And so as I was working on the splash music, I started thinking about, like, what if I use those as prompts for the music? So, but they all come from what I imagine are some of the gestures that Twombly makes, to splash, to drip, to scribble, to scrawl, to, so that's how that came about.
That's amazing. You grew up in Evanston, Illinois.
Well, I was born in Evanston.
You were born?
But I actually grew up in Glencoe, which is a little bit further north on the lake.
Oh, okay. Did you grow up at Frank Lloyd Wright House?
Yes. There was a subdivision of Frank Lloyd Wright houses that were like middle-income housing surrounding in the same neighborhood as a big house he built for his lawyer.
Oh.
And it was called Ravine Bluffs, and there were like 5 of these more modest middle-income houses that were really beautiful. They were in the prairie style, and it was really a special thing. I know my parents were very thrilled to be in a house by Frank Lloyd Wright, so I learned a lot about Wright and his architecture growing up, and he made a big impression on me.
And do you think it affected how you look at music today, like just living in his design space? Or
yeah, I mean, to be in an aesthetically beautiful space like that was important. And when I started to really become serious about music, when I moved to New York, I took some composition lessons with Henry Threadgill. And Henry was talking about his sort of system of organic composition. He would start with a small cell of music, and, the whole piece would grow out of this one little idea. And I knew from having studied Wright's architecture in high school that he often would start with a simple motif, and he wanted the building to appear as if it grew out of the landscape. And so I started thinking about music as a space, as a physical space, and, an aesthetic space that, what kind of space did I want to create? And how could I move, so Wright's thing was the outside should flow into the inside and the inside to the outside. And all of those things made sense to me as a young improviser composer trying to figure out what to do. Like, how do I blur the lines between composition and improvisation? How do I move in and out that way? How do I take a single idea and allow something to grow from that? And so I think it was more after studying music and then reflecting on the experience of living with Frank Lloyd Wright that I understood more how to apply that idea.
Right. When you're looking at a piece of art, as you would have Cy Twombly at the MoMA, or if you're listening to a piece of music, maybe it's not yours. When you're looking at the art, do you hear things? And when you're listening to the music, do you see things?
I don't have synesthesia in the traditional sense. For me, it's more of a dialogue. It's more dialogic because, like, I walked into this gallery at MoMA and I was like, this makes me want to respond through playing music. So for me, I think I'm certainly not translating, sometimes I'll apply, I could give you an example, like I played this piece Chalk tonight that we talked about.
Yeah.
It was based on these drawings he would do, almost as if he was practicing writing, He would like calligraphy, and he did this series of circles that some were bigger, some were smaller. I'm imagining maybe the tempo of his gesture changes.
Yeah.
And there were 3, and I was writing that for Splash. And I thought, well, this is a great trio idea. We each take a line. I came up with a series of cells or pitch sets. And I said, you can use any 2, 3 of these notes or 4 notes or all of them and make your own loop or a pattern and then try to play in a different tempo than I'm playing. And then I'll cue when we move to the next one, and then change the way you're playing. So if you were playing fast, play slower. If you were playing loud, play softer, And that was the direction for the piece.
You've been described as a polystylist, but how would you describe your musical style and your approach to the piano?
I'd say, I think I've come to see now, it wasn't necessarily what I set out to do, but that I've kind of absorbed a lot of the music that I've loved from my whole lifetime. I grew up outside of Chicago, as we said. The first real music I studied classical music as a child, but I got introduced to the blues and the Chicago style very young. I feel like that's still in my music, even if I'm not overtly playing a 12-bar structure or something. And then I got introduced to jazz and all kinds of 20th century classical music, and then the AACM, and then on, And I feel like I've just tried to absorb as much of it as I can, but not try to imitate it, rather just let it come through if it wants to come through.
Do you have a favorite configuration? Solo, trio, quintet, orchestra?
I'm playing now in various trios, quartet, and quintet. I like larger ensembles. They can be fun, but there's less space for each individual. And so I've never gravitated towards that so much as a composer or band leader. But I tend to, I guess because I like odd numbers, maybe trio and quintet, but I'm playing in a fantastic quartet right now, so
Yeah.
There you go. And I like to play solo too, although I do it less frequently. I think if I played more, I would enjoy it even more.
How do you quiet your mind in your downtime? And I'm assuming you've got a lot of music going on in your head, maybe all the time. But what do you do to quiet your mind?
I wish I had music more of the time. I'm being a professor at the university like UC Berkeley, there's a lot of administration.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of, like, my students' issues. So I get a lot out of teaching because I'm learning constantly from my students and my colleagues. But I'm thinking sometimes more about their music than my own, which is,
right.
But what I do actually, when I do need to come down is like after a show when I have a lot of adrenaline and I need to go to sleep, and or how I need to start the day is through meditation. Mm-hmm. So I do have a sitting meditation practice, and I've also been like a student of yoga for quite a few years now.
Right.
So those are the things that help me quiet my mind, or a good glass of wine.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. What is it you're looking for the audience to experience when you do a show?
Well, I want people to feel good. I want people to maybe experience something they need to experience, like if they're working through something. But I really just want to create a space that's, I hope uplifting and, joyous.
So you've got one more set at the Something Else Festival with Francois and
right.
The Secret Lives of Color, and then you're off. You're on the road.
With this band, we're going to Ottawa tomorrow night, to the Ottawa Jazz Festival, and then we go to Montreal. We're playing on Sunday night at a festival at Casa de Popolo.
Nice. Good venue.
And then, or Di Popolo.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after that, I'm flying to New York, and I'm rehearsing new music with Fire and Water, my quintet, and we're playing at Roulette next week.
Oh, fun.
So it's like I'm so happy to just have all these opportunities to be playing and writing and yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time and your talents. Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening, everyone. For more information on our guest, Myra Melford, go to myramelford.com. That's myramelford.com. Music Buddy is brought to you by Morning Run Productions. We're a small but mighty operation, and our goal is to continue bringing you great conversations with fascinating music people for a long time to come. However, we count on your support to keep the show going. So if you're in a position to help us out by donating, we'd gladly accept your gift at musicbuddy.ca/donate. Any amount is eternally appreciated. And please share, comment, rate, and help spread the word via social media, or heck, just by social encounters. People you see on the street, at the store, around the dinner table. If you have any questions or thoughts on the show, please reach out. You can DM me or email me. I'm jane@musicbuddy.ca. Until next time, keep moving to the music.